Hi, welcome to the Light of Deception Ministry. Today I'm going to be filming our new series. This one is going to hit really close to home, so it's going to be tough to listen to, but it needs to be said. It is for anybody out there that is having eyes to see and ears to hear and kind of wondering what's going on in the world with children, with video games, with cartoons, with movies, with books, and Eastern meditation practices that are being taught to our children as young as preschool. And in the cartoons that they're seeing before they're in preschool. So as we were growing up, when I was young, I remember that the movies that were out and the cartoons that were out back in the day were pretty scary. Right? But some of them were more innocent, like Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie. And then as I got a little older and got into the teenagers, and I'm talking young teens, there was that Blair Warner movie, which was dealing with demonic entities, and Poltergeist, and Freddy Krueger, which was a murderer and a child molester. And it just went on and on, Friday the 13th, and Sissy Spacek, and movies that came that she was a part of. And just thinking about the kind of nightmares and the part of me that it opened up when I got to set my eyes on such incredible evil that started off pretty innocent and then led into a world of nightmares and images that you can't get rid of in your head because you wanted to be cool and you wanted to fit in and you wanted to watch the movies that everybody else was watching. Now I watch my children grow up and they were more into Bible and fairies and more outward spells and witchcraft, which was a little bit more acceptable. So they got into the Harry Potter series, and we tried to help them stay away from such things, so they really didn't read much of those things. And then it went on to be the Hunger Games and all the things that were more popular in the young adult age. And now I'm looking at a teacher. I'm sitting in the playgrounds and watching, and I'm governing over kids and protecting them, and I'm seeing them casting spells as young as 4 years old. So they're in 5 years old and they're throwing crystals and gems and casting spells, and kids are laying on the floor and they're doing zombie, come alive, and they're being dead people in coffins, and they're demon dogs, and they're all into these different things they're watching on TV. So children, what they do is they act out what they see in their imagination. Somebody says, don't you know the difference between reality and imagination? Well, imagination evil and imagination witchcraft is not real. So it's just the imagination. Well, the imagination will lead you in all kinds of divination practices, right? And will lead you into ultimately witchcraft and being a warlock or a white witch, or wanting superpowers, or wanting to be able to do things that the witches do and cast spells and these kind of things. So your imagination truly leads you astray. And how does the enemy work? Do you think he works with children in the reality of evil or in the mystical world of evil? Luring them into wanting to be like these characters. These are role models to them. Girls that have superpowers and crystals, and they have magics, and they're sorcerers, and they're witches, and they're fairies, and they're all these different things, right? In the guise of maybe saving something, or the witches do silly things, or they are, cute little witches that have glittery clothes on, and they want to dress like them. They want to be them for Halloween. Halloween in itself has its own wicked sources in paganism and witchcraft and sorcery as well. So you're seeing everything that they're seeing on TV and in these movies and in these games and the books that they're reading, and these meditation practices that lead you into all kinds of New Age practices and sorceries, and tapping into Hinduism and meditation practices, going into, Buddhism and levitation practices. And it's all about these extra powers and arriving at yourself, a superpower, right? Instead of dying to self. So this series is going to contain a big 5 parts. I'm going to do a broad overview. I will keep the parts together for those who like to see it in its entirety. It'll be under an hour. And if you're one that really likes to see parts of things at different times, there'll be probably 5 different parts, 10 to 15 minutes in length. So here we go. I'm going to start off with giving you the title of what I'm going to be teaching, and it is this. Does the enemy use cartoons, movies, games, meditation practices, and books to win the minds and hearts of our children? That is going to be what we're going to cover. So first I'm going to be talking a little bit about an overview, but cartoons are going to be the first thing I'm going to be addressing. So this first little phrase that I'm going to read here is by a little cute company called Big Happy House, and this is what they say. Best witch movies for kids and families, not too scary. If there's one thing that excites all kids, it's magic. Boys, girls, old, young, magic is something that almost all children love. There's something about the ability to talk to animals, fly, change the weather, and even make a zit disappear that is just mesmerizing. And there's no one who does magic quite like witches. That's why witch movies are so popular. Some kids prefer their witches sweet and sassy. Others like to see witches who are scary and make them shiver. Still others like witches who are a little kooky and silly. In this list, we gathered up all the best witches, the scary ones, the sassy ones, and the silly ones alike, to bring you all the very best witch movies for kids. Okay, and this has a little cute, and I'll show it to you, I'll put it here, a little sassy like dinosaurs that look so innocent and sweet. So we're going to show you what sweetness and how the enemy can guise itself in glittery, sparkly, fancy dresses and cutesy little characters and still be teaching spells, witchcraft, and sorcery. Now, the first one I want to talk about is a little cartoon called Shimmer and Shine cartoon. So listen to this. And we're going to be talking a lot about gems and crystals and what that has to do with tying into witchcraft. I mean, real witchcraft and sorcery. Okay, genie gems. These Shimmer and Shine are their genies. Okay, this episode introduced genie gems, which are magical gems that genies and sorcerers, there's a sorceress in this one, like Zeta, can be used to perform various types of magic. Each gem has its own power. In order to use a gem, it must be placed in the scepter and may require certain magic words and other requirements to use its power. Princess Samira rewards the twins with a green burst gem which can bloom magic plants. It is stolen by Zeta after she uses a potion that ends up pulling Leah and Zach into Sahara Falls with the twins and the gem. However, Leah tricks Zeta and manages to recover the gem. Okay, this is another part from the same series. After showing her the Calliope crystal, Eula shows them her workshop where she makes genie gems. She demonstrates how the Calliope crystal is turned into a genie gem by using one over the Calliope crystal, breaking it apart to create a blank gem, and then imbue it with the power of music to create music gems. She then offers to let the girls create their own gems using the crystal they found. Leah wants to create a flight gem, while Shine wants to create a speedy gem. And Shimmer wants to create a gem that makes things bright and shiny. Eula, however, explains that they can only add on magic powers to the gem. Though the girls think they are in agreement, they end up imbuing different powers into the gem, which results in an unstable chaos gem, which randomly produces the magic it is imbued with, causing havoc. Okay, that's just part of that. Okay, there is another series or books, and it's cartoons, and it's done by Steven Universe. So who is Steven Universe? Okay, believe in Steven. Steven Universe is a half human, half gem hero who's learning to save the world with the magical powers that come from his belly button. Steven may not be as powerful as the crystal gems or as smart, but that doesn't stop him from joining Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl on the magical adventure where Steven always finds a surprising way to save the day. So there you go. Okay, so what is the problem with crystals, and why am I talking about magical powers and crystals? And then how does that relate to reality? How do you train up a kid, right? How does Satan work? How does he lure kids in? So he wants everybody, right? He wants everybody to follow him. How do you take an impressionable child, put him in a situation where everything dark is now magnified and beautified and sparkly and shiny and powerful, and fairies and beauty and superpowers for guys and all this fighting, and not ever really, the good guy never really gets damaged, and he comes back to life, and he's always powerful and more powerful, right? There's one that's called the Red Gem. It is also, I watched a little bit of with the Red Gem, and it teaches children, and I'm going to put it here so you can see it, how to cast spells and what they need to do with their body and how they move their body. And then he casts the spells, and all the kids are casting the spell at him, and then there's a creature that appears, and then it comes into him, and he said, I feel the power. So think about that. That's Red Gem, dealing with a red crystal gem. Here we go. Now there's another one that's talking about, it's actually a book series that's here too. I will be coming back to that when I talk about the books. So let's just talk about 10 crystals every witch should have. While you don't need any tools, herbs, or crystals to perform witchcraft, there are some crystals that can enhance your spell and rituals greatly. There are hundreds of crystals out there to choose from, so how do you figure out which ones you should keep on hand? Lucky for you, I have done the heavy lifting. Below is a list of 10 crystals every witch should have. Some of the crystals come with suggested alternatives, so if you are unable to find one of the crystals, you can find the other, right? Here's something called The Crystal Witch, Volume 6. That's one I'm going to be talking about, and it's Wikipedia, not Wikipedia. So we will return to that one as well. It's going to be talking about the crystals as well and how witches use them. Now I wanted to let you see a little bit on a PDF that I found, which I thought they did a good job with graphs. And what it is talking about is the impact of cartoon programs on children's language and behavior. It has both positive and negative effects on children's behavior. The results indicate that children who watch cartoons show high levels of language acquisition and cognitive development, but they also show some aggressive and violent behaviors with their siblings and friends sometimes. Well, I see a lot of that on the playground as a teacher for over 20 years. So we do see a lot of that being played out in the playgrounds, and children do get hurt. And they also pick up shovels and sticks. They make swords and guns. They are casting spells. They are throwing crystals. They are doing, as I said in the beginning, kind of painting an overall picture for you. Now, what I want to look at here is one of the Bible verses. There's some warnings here that we need to look at. And Jesus called the little children unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except you be converted, and become a little child, ye shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble themselves as this little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoso shall receive one such little child in my name saith me. But This is what I'm looking at here. But who shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me? It will be better for him that a millstone were hung around his neck, and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. Matthew 18:2-6. So God does not take lightly to leading children astray. So we're going to be also looking at the nuggets from the Occult Invasion Toys, Games, and Films from the book written by Dave Hunt. Now, this is has amazing information in it. It's late Dave Hunt from the Berean Call. Now, it's going to have some of the older games, Dungeons and Dragons. It's going to be talking about when there was the Turtles, the Ninja Turtles were out at that time. And it's going to be covering some stuff that obviously they still exist, but they were they're popular through the ages. Now, I'm just going to read a tiny bit of this, and then we're going to close this session, and I'm going to continue on, but for those who want to see it in a series, it will end after this. Many of the games, toys, videos, and films most popular among children and youth involve the occult. Games such as Dungeons and Dragons. There is even a Christian counterpart called Dragon Raid. That just breaks my heart. Involves the players in non-stop occultism. These fantasy role-playing games are extremely dangerous because of the use of the imagination.
Here's another one to be real cautious of. Jack Skeleton from The Nightmare Before Christmas. So many kids love this. 365 days of the year celebrating Halloween. The Pumpkin King. Be aware that your children are mimicking what they like to see.
Which is the quickest way into the occult. So there you go. And that's only a snippet. We're going to be reading a lot more when we get into the movies and the books and the gaming, and there's a whole article. I'm also going to be using, kind of to wrap it up, it's going to be talking about the mystical New Age thrills, enticing children, and 4 ways to help them. So you're going to see that the enemy's enchantments are coming through mysticism. Right, and the occult practices and spiritual. Let me just give you a little brief on this one too. As it says, and he caused his children to pass through the fire in the valley of the son of Hinnom. Also he observed times and used enchantments and used witchcraft and dealt with a familiar spirit and with wizards. He wrought much evil in the sight of the Lord. 2 Chronicles 33:6. So there's some warnings for you. Let me just put a little bit more in here because I think this is important. Today we are faced with new challenges in protecting our kids from the media available to them. It used to be that we only had to worry about books and movies from the secular media, but now we need to also weigh the things children and teens are exposed to by Christian publishers and film producers. Isn't that the saddest? So not only is it in secular society, it's in the schools. So you took God out of the schools and then you're in secular society. Now it's in the Christian schools because it's being trained in the seminary schools. They're putting people in there. You bring in the world to bring in the world. It's all about what makes people feel good. It's all about self-esteem, self-arrival, selfishness. I mean, that's really the bottom line. So that is part 1. How do cartoons ultimately affect your children?
Here's 2 great resources to have on hand. And thanks for listening.